All right, it is 5:05. From this point, Micah, anybody who pops into the waiting room, go ahead and just let them in. Yeah, Micah's going to be moderating the chat. He'll also probably be hopping in and helping me talk about stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Or I guess if you want to, you can raise your hand also, and then Micah can like find you, and then you tell me to shut up and answer your question. That's why we're here. We're here to answer your questions. Mostly, I'm going to be talking about some general information, just to give you a heads up about the process for making a portfolio for Laguna College of Art and Design. All right, so, just to get started with all of that stuff. And then, Micah, you got the waiting room, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
Like I said, I want to preface we'll be recording this session, so mic's camera is optional. Feel free to use the chat, feel free to use your hand, raise your hand, whatever works for y'all. Okay.
Cool. All right. So, LCAD, hello, everybody. I'm an admissions counselor for Laguna College of Art and Design. My name is Justin. I'm helped out today by Micah Bianco. We are both alumni of Laguna College of Art and Design. I graduated from the illustration track back when illustration had an entertainment emphasis. And Micah graduated from the entertainment design track or program, BFA. That's only two of the majors. We'll get to, a few others here shortly. So today we're going to talk about LCAD. We're going to give you a brief overview about the school, a little bit about the history, kind of our size, the general information and the vibe of the school. Then we're going to talk a little bit about art school and admissions because the admissions and application process for art school is different than your typical college, especially state schools and things like that. And then finally, we will deep dive into portfolios and developing a portfolio because younger artists don't necessarily know what they should include or not include in their portfolio. A lot of artists, especially young artists, they think that a portfolio should just be everything they've ever done, and that's not necessarily true. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's talk about LCAD really quickly. So LCAD is a private nonprofit college of the visual arts. We were founded in 1961 as sort of a fine arts college. Basically, a bunch of painters in Laguna Beach got together and decided they wanted to start teaching, so they did. Eventually, they formalized into an actual college teaching drawing and painting, illustration, and graphic design. And now, today, we have an even bigger school with even more majors than that. We have since grown in, three major new areas: game, animation, and entertainment design. So our current enrollment, last official count, was 755 students. So we're a fairly small school, which is very important. That makes the average class size about 9 students per professor. It's typically 8 to 12 students per professor, with your liberal arts classes or your general classes being on the higher side, with, your more specialized classes being much more on the lower end. And, as an alumni and, talking to like most alumni, I know a lot of students who went to the school. There's no better way to learn a craft, especially creatively, especially a physical skill set like drawing, painting, or designing, than having direct access to mentors or to people who are experts in the thing that you want to do. It is absolutely indispensable as as a component of your education. So small class sizes, and we very intentionally keep it that way. We are in the process of expanding our school, but we're doing so very, tactfully, slowly, to make sure that our students remain, in these class sizes so they're getting the maximum they can from their in-class experiences. And we are fully accredited, which is also important because we offer a degree. That's something, that is very big for an art school. Not all art schools offer an accredited degree. We are. As a matter of fact, we are a Bachelor of Fine Arts, not just a BA. So the difference between the sparkly F and the not F included bachelor's degree is the physical discipline, the actual thing that you have to do, the skill, the output. It's not just an academic knowledge base. It's something that you're training your body to actually do, right? So there's some sort of output. In this case, it is art, visual art. And to that end, we do have 6 majors that we currently have. We've recently restructured our majors a little bit. We offer all of the same stuff. As a matter of fact, we offer more than we used to, but we streamline everything. So we used to have 7, now we're down to 6 because animation is under its own umbrella once again. Starting with animation, there are 2 different tracks. So animation, we have character animation and experimental animation. Character animation is what a lot of people consider or think about when they think about animation, at least at first. It's that really classical feature film Disney style of animation, 24 frames per second, really high frame rate, really dependent on character acting. Experimental animation is not as high a frame rate. You're working 7 to 12 frames per second because it's more suited for television, just using different techniques to make the process faster because animation takes a while to turn around for television. Is so much shorter. You have such a short amount of time to produce a thing. So experimental, you're learning a lot more different animation techniques, that enable you to create sort of different animation effects. And that doesn't mean that character animation is exclusive to film, and that doesn't mean that experimental is exclusive to TV. That's just sort of how it works out and how they best sort of fit as their own curriculums. You definitely can, be a character animator and then end up in television and vice versa with experimental. We also have drawing and painting. Drawing and painting, it has its track of just drawing and painting, and then there is also an emphasis in illustration if you wanted to take your drawing and painting into the more commercial route. Entertainment design is one of the big changes that we're sort of making this coming term. Entertainment design actually now has two tracks. We have concept development and themed design. So concept development, you're thinking about visual development, right? Character design, environment design, prop design, vehicle design. All of that visual development stuff is going to be under that concept development umbrella. Theme design is going to be much more about the actual thematic design. So think about trying to design your own land at Disneyland, right? That's going to be what's contained within theme design. So a lot of that is going to have to do with designing for live action. So costuming, aesthetic architecture, designing an experience, right? Game development is the other sort of big major that we have that's coming with big changes this coming term. Game development, which was previously game art, now has two tracks. Game art is now a track of game development. So game art is now the track that focuses on the art side, the asset development side for video games, while game design is actually going to be on the sort of back house part of designing games. So you're looking at level design, narrative design, programming, scripting, all of that fun stuff that actually goes on in the background that creates, the video game for what it is. And then we also have graphic design, digital media, which graphic design is one of those majors that is deceptive because it's kind of everywhere. A lot of colleges have graphic design, but LCAD's specific version of graphic design um, is way more robust. I've never seen a curriculum that comes anywhere near us as far as the graphic design space. We teach everything. So graphic design at other colleges usually is one sort of skill, right? Whether it's advertising or marketing or logo and branding for big businesses. Our graphic design major includes all of that. It's advertising, it's marketing, it's brand and logo design, it's apparel design, it's UI UX design, it's colors, it's materials, it's finishes, it's photography, it's typography, it's photo manipulation. It's basically everything under the sun that you think of when you think of graphic design. And that's what makes our graphic designers so strong and so unique. We also have an emphasis in illustration within our graphic design digital media major. So if you wanted to bring more of your own personal artwork into the major, you absolutely can do that. And then finally, we have illustration. Illustration has been one of those majors that's been very exciting, especially for the past year. We have a new chair of the program who has been doing just incredible things. It's very much focused on creating picture making experts. Really, as an illustration major, your goal is going to be the ability, or I guess attaining the ability, to get any sort of parameters from a client and meet those parameters. Any material, any size parameter, any subject matter, any sort of typography, anything that needs to be included in this image, you can take all of those elements and create a fantastic image from it. Illustration differs from like drawing and painting in that illustration is a lot more commercial. So you're going to be doing things like, movie posters, books, magazines, that sort of stuff, as opposed to drawing and painting for gallery. So those are our majors currently. And finally, after talking about all of this, these are all under that BFA umbrella. They are all a BFA degree, which is fantastic, which means you're studying in your major for all 4 years while you're at LCAD, which as an artist, that is what you should want. That's what you should be going for. All right, so we have this very visually appealing slide that kind of shows the creative economy. We refer to it as a creative economy here in Southern California, just to show you that our location it matters for more than aesthetic beauty. Because don't get me wrong, Laguna Beach is gorgeous. I love living in Southern California, but the main thing about LCAD is its location and its um, geographical like location in the middle of all of these huge entertainment companies. We are not far from the biggest entertainment companies in the world, and we're constantly pumping out students to all of these locations. These dots serve a couple of different purposes. Number one, these dots show off, just some big companies that are nearby. But number two, these dots also show off places where we have alumni, places where we pull our teachers from, places that LCAT has some sort of relationship with, whether it's we have a student working there, whether we have a professor working there, whether we have some sort of even in class, relationship with them. That's why all of these are pointed out. So it's pretty cool. All right, and then we just have a splash page. Guaranteed, most of you can look at this and not even have to actually read the labels or read the logos before you know what company that is. Once again, these are all companies that LCAD has had some sort of relationship with in the past. I mean, just a couple ones of note. Blizzard, I was talking about how our game art program or our game development program now is getting so much bigger. Um, yeah, so Blizzard is one of our direct partners. I mean, we have tons of students working over there. I think like half of the World of Warcraft team now is LCAT alumni, and that's that's one of the bigger players in the game art or the game development industry, right? So that's just one example, but all of these places we have sent students to, we have had professors come from to come in and teach our students. Okay, so now we're going to start talking a little bit about the actual application process. So it can be scary, but if you're interested in applying for LCAT at all, we always recommend just to open an application. Why? Couple of different reasons. Number one reason, it's free. You're not losing anything by applying. Number two, you don't have to be ready with everything. What it does is it puts you into our system and makes you a priority for your admissions counselor. So if you open an application, whether it's me, whether it's Micah, whether it's another one of our, very talented counselors here, um, you'll pop up in our inbox and we'll be able to go in and be like, hey, what's up? Here's all the things that we need. If you want to meet with me, please go ahead. You'll get a big email. You'll get invited to our Discord, which is new, which we've been playing around with, which has been just fantastic. Students are absolutely loving it. And we've made it available to applicants as well as people who are accepted and enrolled. So that's always fun. That way you can get sort of started early with, making friends and developing the community at LCAD. All right. And another big reason why you should open your application is just because we want to send you all the information that you're going to need to build your portfolio. LCAD, just like any other art school, is going to have our own requirements, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit, of what we want to see in your portfolio. So keep that in mind. Pick our brains, talk to us. We're all professional working artists. We've been, doing it for a little while. We've all graduated from LCAD. And we all do this job because we really do believe in this school. So anyway, what do you need for your application? And keep in mind, you don't need all this all at once. This is just what you need to complete the application. We're looking for transcripts. Obviously, your high school transcript. You need to graduate high school to go to college. And then any college or pre-college that you have, because we are fully accredited, we can accept transfer credits. Be warned, we are a BFA, so I don't recommend you going and taking 2 years at a community college and then transferring to LCAD. That's one of those things that, unfortunately, sometimes people try and do. And yeah, you're not going to get 2 years ahead at LCAD for doing 2 years at a community college. Our BFA limits our liberal arts by quite a bit. So talk to our transfer specialist. Nick is awesome and he'll help you. He'll actually advise you if you want to go to community college first. He'll tell you exactly what classes to take so that you can free up some time semester to semester here at LCAT. So transcripts of all kinds, send them our way. We also require an essay. Don't panic. It's literally 300 to 500 words of why I want to go to art school. That's it. No worries. It's very easy. It's just a way for you to introduce yourself to LCAT, introduce yourself to your admissions counselor, to the admissions committee. And then your portfolio. The portfolio is the big part of your application, and it's the reason why you're all here, I'm sure. And then just a footnote, we don't require any sort of test scores or letters of rec. Letters of rec, we always have people who insist on sending them in. It's very nice. I love hearing about your art teachers and how passionate they are for you. But they don't really make any sort of difference on your appeal for your appeal for entry to LCAD. It's all about your portfolio. All right, so this is sort of something I was covering before. Um, what is art school? So a big thing about art school is you want to consider all the components of it, right? I've already talked a little bit about the difference between a BFA and a BA. So make sure if you're looking at art schools, like what do they offer, a BFA or a BA? Public versus private. Typically, private schools are going to be more expensive. It's going to happen. But the benefit of having a private school is the fact that we make the decision on who to hire. So we're hiring industry professionals. We're grabbing people who have relevant information, relevant job skills that they can teach our students um, to teach here. And that's not necessarily the case in other public schools. So nonprofit and for-profit. We're nonprofit. We are entirely tuition driven. Which is a big deal. That means we don't have like a board of governors, who are um, forcing us to teach one philosophy of art or anything like that. We're hiring industry professionals to teach our students and prepare them for the industry they want to go into. Academic versus career school, obviously academic knowledge base being sort of like a general, like you're getting an academic understanding, a very broad understanding versus a career school. Careers as in, oops, hold on. Okay, there we go. Career as in preparing you for a specific job, a specific task, that sort of thing. So anyway, you get the idea, right? You want to see what the school is offering and what they're going to get for you, essentially. The way that we refer to that is fit. Like, what are you looking for? What do you want out of your education? What matters to you? What doesn't matter to you? Make sure you kind of get an idea of all of these things. It's really important to start thinking about what does matter to you. Um, that way, you can look at art schools or schools in general with a little bit of an informed idea of what it is that you want. All right, so here's the part that I'm
Wait.
sure. What's up?
Can we pause? Does
Yep.
anyone have any questions about any of that we just went over? I do have one in the chat I wanted to float to you, but if anyone also has questions on their mind.
Yeah. Sure, sure, sure. I'm
No?
kind of firing
All right,
away.
cool. Okay, we did get one question. Student was asking, when pursuing graphic design, is it accurate to expect the degree to have merit in getting a job for gaming companies? So,
Merit. So if you're going to go into graphic design, is it possible to get a job at a gaming company? Yes. The real answer is yes. If you desperately want to work in game, I recommend game development. But if you want to do graphic design, but you also want to do graphic design for a gaming company, yeah, sure. The magic of graphic design is that every company, even non-entertainment based companies, have graphic designers. They are everywhere. That's one of the reasons why, whenever I'm talking to students and they're not quite sure what they want to do, I'm like, well, if you're not quite sure, look at graphic design. It'll open a lot of doors for you. Simply because it's everywhere. Everything you interact with on a daily basis has been touched by a graphic designer. Everything around you, from the phone in your pocket to the clothes on your back right now, have been looked at a designer at some point. So, if that's appealing to you, that sort of versatility, graphic design is a very, good major for that. To come
you
back to your
see,
question, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, you see graphic design in game all the time.
Yeah.
Every company under the sun is gonna need a graphic designer. They should have a graphic designer, first off. But um, if you're not going to get like locked, like soft locked out of like a job just because your degree says graphic design. Does that make any sense? If a game company is hiring a graphic designer and you're like, hi, I did that, what's up? They're looking for a graphic designer, right? And like Justin was saying, our graphic design doesn't just shoehorn you into like one thing for 4 years. It teaches you a multiple array of different disciplines. So if you wanted to get into game as a UI UX designer, you could do that because you can take those classes, right? So that's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah. and that's absolutely correct. And yeah, graphic or game companies do have graphic designers. That's like the
Okay.
short answer. The
Yeah.
TLDR is yes, you absolutely can do that. There's a lot of um, interdisciplinary or inter industry possibilities within all of our majors.
So we have another question.
Yep.
If applying to a specific studio, will LCAD recommend the applicant or does the applicant do it themselves? Depends obviously on the studio, but a lot of our professors are adjunct faculty, which just means that they only work here part-time because they're working their full-time job at Blizzard, at Disney, at Riot. Pick a game studio, pick a animation company, right? So if you have a professor that worked at the studio and you are getting feedback from them and you're like have a good rapport and you ask questions and you say, hey, I am applying for that internship at Obsidian. Cool. Let them know. They might have a way to be like, hey, yeah, I've worked with this student. They're really excellent. Please, take an extra like peek at their application. Of course, we are not like some sort of guarantee into internships or job applications. You still have to apply to those, but we do have professors that can give you feedback on it, have probably worked at a lot of these studios, and they'll encourage students to like, hey, my company's doing a thing, apply, right? Um, it's all about kind of making those kind of connections and having a lot of that, like they've worked with you before, they've seen your art improve. They're gonna vouch for you if you do like say, hey, I'm applying here, just let your creative director know, right? So yeah, the answer is yes and no. You should definitely, reach your hand out, be like, hi, can I make these connections? But you'll also have those connections to even make because you're going to a school where the people who work at these companies are teaching, right? That's my 2 cents. I don't know if you want to add anything there.
No, yeah, that's exactly right. It comes down to like networking. I'm not the biggest fan of that word, but it's true. And it doesn't just apply to art schools either. This is just a professional thing, period. The better rapport you have with people who are working in your field, the more likely you are to get good jobs. That's just sort of how it works. And that's why LCAD is such a great school for people who are serious about joining an industry and not just wanting to learn one or two skills, right? LCAT is very industry focused. We're preparing you for work. We're preparing you for a job. It's not just some sort of like summer camp where you're learning to make, crafts or whatever. And like Micah said, we have teachers who have done all this stuff, and that is the beginning of your connections, of your network, of all that stuff. So you kind of leave school ahead of the pack in a lot of ways because of that. And that's one of LCAT's biggest strengths for sure. All right. So actually, was there anything else before I move on? I can't see my Zoom layout while I have my
Um,
presentation up.
no worries. Do you guys have any other questions to mind about any of that before we get into portfolio stuff? No? Okay, we're chilling. Go.
Cool. All right. So I like this page because this is one of those, like talking to people who want to be artists. Um, the iceberg that is art, that is the artist, right? So many people, they look at Instagram, they look at a website, they look at, whether it's ArtStation, something like that, right? All of that finished work, all of that very curated, pretty stuff. That's like the top of the iceberg. That's what they're showing the world, right? What they're not necessarily showing the world is their sketchbooks, their skill development, their ideation, their studying, even their ugly drawings, right? All of these things that sort of stack up in order to give you a platform to build your big finished pieces. All of this stuff, the bottom of this iceberg that you don't see, is insanely important. And I will tell you that for our portfolio process, this is what we want to see. We love seeing your sketchbook work, your development work. We want to see what you're playing with, how you're studying, how sort of like what level you're at that academic level of art, right? You can do a lot to sort of like pretty up a piece that doesn't necessarily work, but if you render it well enough, it looks okay. What we're concerned with is the drawing. We want to see solid foundational drawing because that's largely what LCAT is about. And a lot of that is going to be sort of like crowdsourced. So when you get to LCAT and you start attending LCAT, you're not going to be an island. um, Like at the bottom here, we have community critique, discussion, sharing our loves, research, all of that stuff. That's all going to be sort of like a group thing. So at the very beginning of LCAD, it's not just going to be, your teachers looking at your work and tearing through it, and that's it. That will happen, but it's also going to be your peers. You're going to be taking part in critique. You're going to be asked to give critiques, which is important. That's developing a couple of skills. Number one, it's giving you a lot of perspective and a lot of, trained or training eyes on your work, which is just illuminating, more illuminating than I can possibly explain. It's so cool how quickly you begin to start looking at artwork differently once you become part of that artistic community. But number two, learning how to talk and talk constructively about work is so important, because that's what's going to happen when you become a professional. When you become a professional, you're not just going to be given an office and expected to output, like, oh, give me a drawing a day, that's great. No, 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 no. You're going to be put in a room with a team. You're going to have an art director, you're going to have an assignment, whatever it happens to be, at least for most of our majors. Drawing and painting, it's a little bit different, because that's a lot more entrepreneurial. That is a lot more of working out your own ideas. But even drawing and painting students will go to their peers for critique. They'll go to their professors for critique. I mean, if you talk to any of our drawing and painting professors, it's like they get text messages from their old students all the time about their work. So this whole idea of being able to share and help others constructively build their work and their skills is so, so, so important. So that's the whole bottom of that iceberg. This is really what we care about. This is what we're trying to help you develop. And this is what we want to see in the portfolio, is all of this effort and all of this sort of academic learning. Mike, is there anything you want to add to that? Because this is sort of like a big part of our portfolio discussion.
I'll say we do want to see your sketchbooks. We want to see
Yeah.
the blood, sweat, and tears, literally.
Yeah.
A polished piece. Here's my feelings on like just a beautiful polished piece. Awesome. Looks cool. Love it. Um, I love the iterations though, right? When you go to pick up an art book for like, I don't know, like Puss in Boots, Last Wish, you're not just gonna be like, oh, cool, look at all this cool stuff. You already saw the movie. You already saw the final polished piece. You want to see all of the iterations and all of the ideas and all of the fun experiments that didn't make it to the final cut, right? That's what we want to see, essentially. We want to see all the parts that didn't quite make it, right? That OC in your sketchbook, I know you have them. They're at 3/4 angle and you keep drawing their eyes. Listen, I want to see all the iterations of them that didn't make it to your final illustration. Okay. I know you have them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't be shy. We work with students all
Yeah.
the time. We know the kind of things you make, and we encourage it too.
Yeah.
So yeah, just show off how you are exploring and how you're thinking, because that tells us a lot more about how you are as an artist than like a finished illustration, right? A
Yeah.
lot of people can achieve a realistic polish. Doesn't necessarily mean like it doesn't, not that it doesn't mean you're a good artist. It just means that like anyone at an artist can do that. I want to see your design skills. I want to see all the outfits that didn't make it. I want to see they had 4 different weapons and then you chose a fifth secret weapon that we didn't even know about at the last minute, right? That's the kind of stuff we're looking for. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Show us all of that. That's what we're looking for in our portfolio. Don't be afraid of having ugly drawings. Well,
Um, yeah.
go ahead.
Well,
Yeah, I
I
was gonna
think there's
say,
a difference between, yeah, there's a little difference between that. We do
don't
have a
be afraid of ugly
question.
drawings, but you want to curate it. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you recommend sharing a sketchbook through a digital portfolio, scans or flip through video? Just take pictures on your phone, straight
Hmm.
up. We got these things here. Good lighting, please do good lighting. Um, and you can compile it onto like, hey, here's 3 pages I really like. Crop it how you want so you can get that weird one that you totally are like, I didn't want to take a picture of it. And stick it on the same page. Very helpful. I don't know if you have any examples or anything
Yeah,
that
that's what
you're
I was
wanna.
gonna. I'm gonna go to.
Yeah, very helpful. A lot of students will just basically take pictures of pages they like, stick it all on one page, or sometimes they'll have multiple pages of pictures, or if they already work digitally, they might just have all their digital sketches on like one big page and be like, here's my one character, right? Or here are my gestures. So
Here's an
yeah,
example of
easy
a
enough.
student who basically, yeah, these are all just photographs that they took with their phone, and then they went into like an image editing software and stitch them all together. This is what we're talking about. We love this, right? There's not really any writing on it. It's just a bunch of drawing showing us that they are practicing. There's gesture on here. There's a little bit of value, right? There's a little bit of anatomical knowledge. There's different posing. There's a bunch of stuff going on here. And this is just like practice. This is mileage. If you can put together a bunch of portfolio slides like this, it'll go a long way, specifically with figure drawing, and a lot of figure drawing will go a long way in your portfolio for just about every one of our majors, apart from graphic design, but that's because graphic design is more about the presentation and graphics, right?
Speaking
Yeah.
of, we have a question. Can photography be applied to any art portfolio for any school? Not sure what every school is looking for. We in particular do not have like a photography major necessarily, right? Our photography is going to be baked into our graphic design only because that is where it best supports photography, right? We have like photography classes, videography classes within that. Because photography on its own, awesome. You can learn it, composition, color, editing, you learn all that, but without like the essentially like support structure of graphic design, the marketing, the business, the branding, where are you applying your photography, right? If you're going to put photography in a portfolio for us, keep in mind that's going to be more relevant for the graphic design major. So just keep that in mind. You can use photography if you're using references for like your own drawings. You'd be like, hey, here's the reference I took of my friend or whatever in like the little corner or whatever. Sure. But like if you're like, here's a picture I took. Also, by the way, I'm applying to drawing and painting. We'd be like, what's we want to see your drawing and paintings, right? We want to see your game stuff. We want to see your animation stuff. So keep in mind relevancy and keep in mind that we want to see where your photography would essentially show up like in the real world. Is it a band poster? Are you using it as like reference for an illustration stuff? Like, like pick a place where we'll like see it in real life, if that makes any sense. Do you have anything to add for that? Oh, do you have anything to add to that, Justin?
No, I sorry, I thought you were asking the student.
I know.
No, you kind of nailed it. Yeah, like photography is great. And essentially you can learn to become a decent photographer pretty quickly. What really matters with photography is everything surrounding it, the idea of composition, color, lighting, obviously, but then also, like Micah was saying, how you use it. So what is it meant for? That sort of thing. So yeah, no, you nailed it. Okay, so skill development. This is a lot of what we want to see in your portfolio. Obviously, that's why it's in this section. Practice, practice, practice. It's a big thing. Mileage is so crucial when it comes to a career as a creative, period. Um, and we stress it. We stress it a lot, uh, just because we want our students to come in with sort of like the idea that we're going to expect a lot of this practice and repetition. Uh, Basically, if you can learn the drawing skill, you can extrapolate a lot of different skills from that and go to a lot of different places that may or may not have anything to do with your major, right? So drawing is just one of those skills that's going to be applicable to just about anywhere you want to go as a creative. So here we have the example that learning to draw is like learning a sport or a musical instrument. It's a physical activity, sort of what I was talking about before. The big thing about a BFA, it's not just an academic knowledge base, it's a physical skill set that you are actively practicing and honing. And that's a big difference between like a typical, 4-year school, state school, whatever. That's not a BFA, or even some BFAs that still have more of a theoretical, base than an actual practical base. LCAD is a lot more practical, but we also don't skimp out on the academic either. You're going to come out knowing the know and doing the do, if that makes sense. Yeah, and this is sort of what I was touching on as well. Having technical skills open doors to creativity. Basically, if you have these foundations that we stress so heavily in our portfolio and at school, you won't really struggle for work. Being able to draw will take you a long way. Draw or design, really. And then at the bottom there, make bad drawings before you can make good drawings. This is what I was saying before. Basically, you don't want to be afraid of creating something bad. It's going to happen. Professionals do doodles that they're embarrassed of. It's just something that happens. You'll get over it eventually once you've done enough drawing, just because you know, like, oh, this didn't really work, whatever, you know? It's a thing. Don't be afraid to fail. Failing is the quickest way to getting better. So, skill development. This is where we're gonna let you sort of take a look at a lot of the stuff that we'd like to see, right? This is gonna be a combination of, several different things when it comes to specifically design, but this first page is looking specifically at observational drawing. So observational drawing can be a number of different things, whether it's a still life that you very specifically set up, or if you want to venture out into the real world and, risk being near spooky people, you can look at them in real life and try to capture real life from that, which is what we recommend a lot. That way you won't be too precious with your drawings, because people move, so you won't be able to sit there and noodle and all of that stuff. So don't be afraid to just look at things, look at people, and try to draw them. Right now, that being said, what we want to stress, and then this is going to be, going forward as an academic artist, since you're looking at art school, um, have an intention behind what you're doing. Obviously, have fun. Like, you can be whimsical about it, but try to always get something out of what you're drawing. Like, what is your point? Are you trying to capture a gesture? Are you trying to keep things proportionate? Are you trying to, maybe get a perspective correct, something like that? Because learning perspective from life is, it's harder than it sounds. All that sort of stuff. So observation and life drawing, this is huge. um Basically, for all of our majors, this is going to be, you can bulk out your portfolio in this style of drawing and do pretty well. um this is the foundation. This is your rock. This is your fortress of solitude when it comes to being a professional creative.
I
Now,
want to point out
yeah,
on
go
the
for it.
other page, both of the artists, well, actually, I think most of the artists we've seen past like the portfolio thing are LCAD artists, right?
Hmm.
And I want to point out that one artist is an illustrator and animator. He's currently doing comic books. And the other artist is actually an animator. So you see that, like, even if you're like not in the fine arts, you're still doing gestures, you're still doing figures, right? You're still studying anatomy. You're still observing from life. So just keeping that in mind if you're like going into game art. This next slide, I'll tell you about this next slide.
I would say,
In
Micah, you want
terms
to take this
of,
one?
yeah, because I'm like, let's be, so this next slide, these are once again featuring artists from LCAT alum. Night Zhang in particular, you did see her art up at the top. She's a character artist. The only reason she's a character artist is because she's done her homework. She's studied anatomy, left, right, and center. So for her, it's very easy, right? We're always pushing foundations because regardless of oh, I just did a little perspective thing in the kitchen. Oh, I just did some gestures, blah, blah, whatever. That's going to be your bread and butter as an artist because when you are designing characters, when you're designing locations, when you're designing props, vehicles, robots, environments, etc., when you're trying to come up with a cool composition for your sick painting, really hard to do that if you don't know what stuff looks like, right? It's
Hmm.
a lot easier to work in a realm of observed realism, representational stuff, right? All the rules here, and then start to abstract, start to go surreal, start to push character design, start to, like do all of that. Um, it's easier to break reality in a way that still feels believable to the person who is viewing it. This is especially important in a lot of our entertainment based majors, right? Have you ever seen a character design where you see it and you're just like, no, that's just something's off about something, right? Or like the
Hmm.
exaggeration, like the proportions are super exaggerated, but in your brain you're like, yeah, looks normal. Like Carl from Up, he's quite literally made out of cubes.
Hmm.
But he doesn't feel like unrealistic character in terms of like he feels believable. He still feels like a real guy in that world, right? Um you see it a lot more often in animation, but even in video games like Overwatch, for example, Tracer's legs are like way longer than like any person's legs would ever actually be. You know what I mean? Or it's just like, hey, why is that guy's head really tiny and his shoulders really wide and his arms and his legs really short? But you kind of are just like, yeah, Lair the Lobster, cool, whatever. Um, you know what I mean? Like it's all believable, even though it is unrealistic or stylized. So keep
Yeah,
that in
one of my
mind. We
favorite
gotta
examples of that is The Incredibles. Like,
The
no
Incredibles.
character in The Incredibles is constructed with any sort of actual anatomy. It's all hyper exaggerated, but it all works in that world, and it's all very much related to their personalities and stuff like that. So, no, that
Yeah.
great points all around. Um, my one of my favorite night quotes is when she was like, "Yeah, well, I've been doing this for a long time. It's sort of like, you learn the alphabet when you're in first grade. So when you're in
Yes.
college, you don't have to worry about how to write the letter K. You just write the letter K." She's like, "That's how I am with anatomy." It's like, okay. And all of a sudden, when you think about it like that, it really makes sense. It's just that she's done it so much and so often that she doesn't think about it. It just sort of like happens. So she's operating on a higher design level because she's not struggling with things like anatomy, with things like proper proportion, with things like perspective, right? So that's why we drive those skills in, is so that you can start operating on that higher plane as well. Cool. Yeah, so skill development, thumbnailing process, all of this is stuff that we love to see. This is not something that every art school is going to ask you for. We want to see your process. We want to see your design process when it comes to composition, when it comes to characters, when it comes to literally anything. Show us how you get from whatever's in here to whatever you show us finished on a piece of paper or on a screen, right? We love seeing this design work. Um, just because it shows us a lot about how you think as a designer. And considering we're still in the realm of design, Micah, do you have anything else that you have about thumbnails?
Let your thumbnails be messy, but still legible. On the previous slide, there's some thumbnails there from my buddy Josh Shunga. He's a thumbnail guy. Like this is his bread and butter. He's in a sketchbook. It's like this big. He has like one of those micro pens. But like even though the thumbnails are quite messy, right? It's literally pen and ink. You still read it as an environment. You still read it as like a place where maybe there's no gravity. Obviously, something fantastical is going on. Clearly, something is, more like in ruins, if that makes any sense. Um, but, like as you're thumbnailing, even like these little character thumbnails here, they are small and a little messy and a little fast, but they're still legible. Like these silhouettes come through, right? That's how I feel about thumbnails. It's like get your idea across, even if it's very simple, right?
Hmm.
Um, these ones, for example, are more like composition thumbnails for specifically like splash art or painting. And this also applies to illustration, also applies to drawing and painting stuff, right? If you're doing drawing and painting and you're like, oh, I have my little sketchbook, use your pencil sketches, try to work out your values, maybe work out where's the character or where's the person or where's the object or whatever you're doing. You can utilize the same techniques here, right? It's just that you see it here with more digital assets, right? Um, yeah, do you have anything to add for that?
No, I mean there's a lot of things that a thumbnail is used for. Thumbnails are very just they're indispensable. Don't be afraid to thumbnail even for something, very simple. Um Oftentimes, like when you start putting something down even as a thumbnail, you'll start to see whether it's a compositional weakness or an anatomical weakness, something like that, right? You'll start to see it quicker than if you were to sit down and plan out a painting and then start your painting and then all of a sudden you're halfway through it and you're realizing, oh, it's not working. All of those problems become evident and are solvable in the thumbnailing stage. So never be afraid to thumbnail and explore before you really dig into, work. And we encourage this. Like if you're working on things for a portfolio, like photograph your progress. That's another thing, is tracking your progress. Um, which is thumbnailing is a thing, but as you're building an image, capturing your step-by-step process, that's something good for you that you can look back on and really see, like, okay, how was I working on this? What was the thought process behind it? What was my method, so that you could better understand yourself as an artist. It's a really big thing. So no, yeah, cool. Oh, sweet. All right. So, what is a portfolio? This is one of those slides that I'm like, you should probably put this at the beginning, but it's fine. We're doing it live here. For LCAD specifically, it is a collection of 12 to 20 images. I guess pages is better. It's 12 to 20 slides that show off your technical skill and creativity. Specifically, we're looking at your Obviously the drawing ability, the relevancy to the major that you're applying to, and then we're also seeing like your voice, right? Like how do you specifically approach the things that we are looking for? All those things sort of combine together um, to determine the strength of your portfolio. And we do. We want to see sort of everything, right? All the things that we just talked about. We want to see your process. We want to see you thinking visually. We want to see your creative problem solving. We want to see works in progress or your viz dev. Sketchbook pages are great. Like a lot of students are like embarrassed to show their sketchbooks, which I get it. Sketchbooks can totally be a personal thing. But at the same time, we get a lot of info out of your sketchbooks and we love seeing them. And if you include sketchbook pages in your portfolio, typically, we have very good things to say about that. Cool. All right, so there's a couple of things about the portfolio. Like the big thing is the portfolio is not just your appeal to entry at LCAD. Your portfolio is also your key to our biggest scholarship. Every portfolio that's accepted to LCAD earns a scholarship, but the stronger the portfolio, the more money we will give you. Right now, on average, we're offering, $12,000 a year. That's just the average for, decent skill, good relevancy. You're hitting the points that we want to see. And then you have, some interesting and fleshed out work. That's 12,000. Could be higher, can be lower. But I will tell you a little secret. The students who work with admissions counselors the most tend to do the best on their portfolio and tend to get on the higher side of things when it comes to their reward and their scholarship to the school. We do have full color portfolio guidelines with examples of what we want to see on the school's website. You can also have your counselor send you all this information. Typically, we will. Typically, when you open an application, we'll send you a "Hi, thanks for opening your application" email, and on that will include the portfolio guidelines for the major that you're applying for. Yeah, we don't look for specific software. We get that question a lot. Is like, what format do you want like all this stuff in? Blah blah blah. Well, it doesn't matter. We don't care about the medium necessarily, right? You can use charcoal, you can use graphite, or you can use digital tools to do all of this work. It's totally up to you. Use the medium that you are most comfortable in. That way you can produce, the best work that you're capable of right now. That's what we want to see. Best foot forward, essentially. Um, Focus on recent work. This is a little redundant because typically, if you like really pay attention, your most recent work is going to be your best work. Um, there's a lot of students who like they did something in junior high that they're super proud of, and they don't ever want to drop it from their portfolio because they love it. In reality, it's probably not as good as you think, and if it is, like there's an issue that you haven't gotten better at drawing since you were in junior high. So yeah, definitely focus on your most recent work. This says less than 3 years old. I would highly recommend that your LCAD portfolio is all work that you've done within the last year, ideally. No fan art. Yeah, like we don't want you to just look at, official artwork and copy it and translate it. That's not showing us anything. It's not really showing us your own drawing ability. It's not showing us any of your creativity or your design brain. It's showing us nothing. No AI generated art or references, right? For the purposes of this, like obviously we're artists, we have very strong opinions on image generation when it comes to AI. And I have like a whole spiel on it, but if you want that, you can talk to me personally and directly, and I'll tell you a lot of my feelings about it. Um, do it yourself. We want to see you, right? We want to see your work. The point is for you to get better, and that's what we want to do. We want to make you better, and relying on, AI bots and other things like that is not going to get you there. It's the same way that like, using AI bots to cheat your way through high school isn't helping your intellect at all. No plagiarism. Obviously, your own work, right? Don't turn in the work of somebody else for your portfolio. There is a high likelihood we will know. We're all very dialed into
We
the
always
art
do.
world. Yeah, so just don't do that. Avoid methods like tracing, the grid method and projecting. It depends on how you work because I for the grid method and projecting, like there are some very prolific painters who that's just how they paint, which is fine. But that being said, the reason why we have this in the presentation is because we want to see how you do drawing just from observation or from your brain or from reference or whatever, right? Using your eyes. We have a very heavy sort of, you know, emphasis on training your eyes for the drawing skill. It's a very big part of what we do at LCAD. Uh, Let me see here.
I do want to go back to the fan art question because I do get this often.
Go ahead.
Um, Here's how I feel about it. Obviously, if you're doing the Sailor Moon screen cap redraw, or if you're doing like panel studies from mangas, or if you're doing like stuff like that, no, like that's your own study. Keep that in your sketchbook, keep that as a master copy, whatever. I wouldn't apply it to a portfolio. However, I have quite literally had two or three students who are like, "Hey, I want to apply for a game. My character is fully supposed to be in the Dark Souls universe, but all of the designs are original, but they are based in the world and the aesthetic of Dark Souls or Bloodborne, or one of the Souls game, right? Um, he got in for his portfolio because, yeah, like, okay, it's Bloodborne, but it's like, hey, I'm taking the aesthetics, I'm taking the rules of the world, the games, like the tropes that are there, and I'm applying it to my own character and how they would interact with the world, right? So keep that in mind, right? If you're confused about fan art, if you're iffy about it, literally just ask us, right? I've had a lot of students who are like, is this cool? And I'm like, that's a redraw from Initial D. Like, no,
Yeah.
dude. But then I've also like seen literal students who had it was Naruto fan art. Picture this, theater of the mind, um, on a sci-fi neon subway, and he's like listening to music. That's so far removed from the actual anime. I was like, this is barely fan art. Like Naruto just happens to be there. Like they're just taking the aesthetics of the orange, essentially. So if you're doing stuff like that, okay, yes, it's fan art, but it's still kind of your own original take. Just ask your counselor on it, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes fan art could be a very excellent execution of your originality and technical skills, right?
Hmm.
Even if it's not technically original, right? Just keep that in mind. At the end of the day, when you graduate in whatever portfolio you make, do as much fan art as you want, right? Obviously within your limits, but um, don't like just try to keep it original, try to show off your own um like takes on the medium and also show off your skills. So just ask your counselor is kind of what I boil it down to.
No, yeah, that's an excellent point. And to contrast that, I've also had a student whose portfolio, like he didn't talk to me too much and he didn't show me his portfolio before submitting it, but his
That's the
portfolio
problem.
ended up being like nothing but like Valorant art. And it's like,
Oh,
yeah, some of it is stuff that you created, but you're basically slapping certain design motifs on top of like Valorant characters and Valorant weapons. It's like, no, 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 no. That's not what we
and
mean by like, so it is like touchy. That's
yeah,
why we're like, maybe don't do that. But like Micah said, if you have like a strong case of like, you know what? No, 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 hold on, trust me. I'm doing Naruto, but it's like in the neon future, it's like 20, 30, 23, 30, whatever. Um, and there's a lot of just unique stuff. And really, the only fan art part is a little blonde boy wearing orange. That's a whole different thing, right? So there you go. Good point, Micah. Thank you. All right. So AP Studio art portfolios, is it helpful for admissions? It depends, which I know is super helpful. Basically, every school is going to be different. If it's going to be relevant for LCAD, use it. Great. That's awesome. If it's not going to align with what we're looking for, don't use it. And that's, hard for some students. They're like, I have this beautiful portfolio that I made in my AP Studio class. Um, this is what I'm going to turn in. It's like, no, no, no. Like some of that, sure, but you need to make more specific stuff for the major that you're wanting to get into. So that's why we have this panel here. It's like, don't just take what you have from, your AP classes or your high school art classes and apply with that. Because while it might be showing off some good skill, and you could potentially get in doing that, I almost guarantee you're not going to get the scholarship that you might deserve if you had tried to make your portfolio a little bit more relevant to LCAD or to, Arton or Otis or wherever you're applying to. So do your research. It's important. Be informed. always be informed. Don't be afraid to look stuff up. Don't be afraid to bug us. We love talking to students. It's my favorite part of the job. We want to help you guys. So ask us questions. That is literally what we get paid for. And it's free to you guys. There's like no cost to any of the services that we provide, including portfolio reviews, phone calls, answering questions. We do try to be like little intro mentors
We
for
also,
students.
yeah, go on.
Go ahead.
Oh, and like we're also artists. Like you're
Mhm.
talking to people who have also been through it, right? Like I'm a production artist for like in the animation stuff. That's what I do, freelance stuff. Justin, you're like a writer and you're doing
Yeah.
like illustration stuff. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like it's stuff like that. It's like every one of the counselors, we are doing some sort of art, whether it's studio practice or like, gallery stuff. Like it just depends on what everyone's doing, right? So you're not talking to someone who's like, I just like art. It's like we're sick in the head, so please ask us questions because we probably have some sort of opinion on it, right?
Yeah.
Um, in terms of AP portfolio stuff, I did want to just mention like sometimes AP portfolios will lean very heavily towards drawing and painting or illustration side. If you're looking into animation or game or entertainment, you might need to start doing other stuff outside of that portfolio that pertains to what we're looking for, right? Every college is different, but what we're looking for is going to be a little more specific. Um, Kira, did you have your hand up for a question? Oh, good. No worries. Okay, cool. Anyway, cool.
And this is, I know, like a really weird sidebar, but ironically, when it comes to AP credit, we do accept AP credit for transfer. So if you get like, like a 3 or higher in like a AP bio or something like that, and if you did, congratulations, that's a tough AP test. Um, we accept it. You can use it to get credit for one of the science classes that we require here. But ironically, we don't accept the AP art credit because we don't have a specific class that we can apply it for. So, just keep that in mind. Again, we have a whole transfer person named Nick who help students with this stuff just because our program is so um it's specific to each industry, to each major, that the whole transfer thing can be a little difficult. It's not going to be similar to the IGETSI, which is what most high school counselors are, pushing on their students. All right, so we mentioned it before, but we're reiterating it because it happens all the time. Your portfolio, you want it to look as nice as possible, right? Ideally, you have a decent scanner, you're scanning in your traditional stuff. Ideally, you are, uploading high quality JPEGs of your digital files, that sort of stuff. Um, so make sure everything is very well lit. There's no weird shadows on your work that's going to obstruct like how it's meant for us to see it. Um, Typically, like diffused sunlight is really nice. That way you're not getting like the spotlight effect. It's not creating, a gradient on your work. It's just going to be a nice, even light. That's what we're looking for. Don't submit massive files. We have a 1 MB restriction on the application. It doesn't really exist. This is a sneak peek for people who are sneak peek. It's a little hint for anybody who decided to show up today or watch this in the future. Um, it's not an actual limit. We just ask that you try to get around that because there have been points where we have people submitting portfolios where their files are, 10 gigabytes each. Like, please just don't do that. It takes it forever to load, um, etc. It's just easier for us. So keep your file sizes small. Typically, exporting it as a JPEG is going to be all you need to do. At least, 1920 by 1080, just standard HD. This says 72 PPI, which is great. You can adjust that when you export the image. For digital images, we always recommend working in 300 PPI, so don't get that mistaken. This is just for the purposes of the portfolio. Anyway, yeah, cool. We mentioned Slide Room just because you can use Slide Room to create portfolio slides. It's one of the easier ways to do so. You can also use, Photoshop if you want to. You can use other photo manipulation programs. Whatever helps you get nice and clean portfolio sheets. Another little tip for your portfolio sheets, make them all 16 by 9. Make them all like the size of a screen and then fit all the images that you can within them. That's important because sometimes we will have students who submit like, oh, this one's a square, this one's like a vertical rectangle, this one is an actual like horizontal landscape orientation. You want to make sure that consistency is good. It makes everything look cleaner, and having a 16:9 slide will give you plenty of room to input your work. So if you have like multiple vertical work, you can fit a couple of those side by side, etc. Right? So just keep everything nice and consistent.
Yeah, 16 by
Um,
9, by the way, is just the ratio of your phone screen or
yeah,
your TV or your
yeah.
laptop, as
It's
long
just
as
the
it's not from like
standard
2007.
screen size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're like, what are these numbers? Don't worry about it. This is pretty standard. Um,
Yeah.
let me
You'll
see.
you'll
We
you'll
did,
be taught a lot of this stuff if you don't already know it.
yeah.
Go
Um,
ahead.
we had a question that's going to get more into specifics of like what each major might kind of look for portfolio stuff, but is there anything
Sure.
else that you also wanted to hit before we kind of get into that?
Um, let's see here. Oh well, I mean the next thing
Oh,
is about
I
the
did send I
portfolio
did send the link to
guidelines.
this. So
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
you can find the
Yeah,
links for this.
so on the website, each one of our majors does now, does now, has always had a link to the portfolio guidelines. You can download them. They are in full color and they show you exactly what we want to see on each slide. Just a heads up, I highly recommend just look at them all, regardless of what major you're interested in, and you'll notice really quickly. We really want to see your drawing. You want to see your life drawing, your observational drawing, your figure drawing. We have a pretty heavy emphasis on those sections, right? So if you can blow us away with those sections, that'll take you a long way when it comes to your portfolio. So never be afraid to practice your academic drawing. Um, Outside of that, it's going to be highly major dependent. And again, I highly recommend going and checking all that stuff out. For animation, really what we're going to look for is your character work. How well can you take a character, articulate that character, give that character facial expressions while keeping everything nice and on model, right? In this example for character poses down here, it's part of the animation sheet. Um, there's a lot of there's a combination of expressions and poses, right? So that's all important. It's all also in color, which you don't necessarily need. That's where I was going with that. You can add color if you want to. No worries if you don't want to. We are mainly looking at your drawing and how well you can basically deliver the idea of movement through a still image. And that's going to be the same for expressions. It's just focused on the face. A little hint if you're looking into animation or you want to practice expressions, a really good way to do so is to not just do face. Don't just emoji your character. Include the shoulders and up. Not all artists have to do that, and down here you'll see not all these characters have the shoulders. But if you're practicing and you want to get the most out of your practice, the most effective way to do it is to add the shoulders. Why? Because a lot of the time your expressions are going to be a full body thing, right? Nobody laughs that ha ha ha. That's not how people laugh. It's just not. A lot of the time, people are gonna ha ha ha. There's gonna be movement. There's gonna be a change in perspective. There's gonna be a change in the whole body, not just the face. So shoulders will help with that perspective. It'll also show a little bit more movement. It's a way to cheat that just a little bit. It's not even really cheating. It's just giving us more to see more, and it'll help you think about it more clearly. So keep all that in mind, and especially when it comes to the major or the industry that you're specifically interested in. And then talk to your admissions counselor, get their advice if they have any sort of advice for a portfolio, or have them show you examples. We have examples from every major to show off. And we have some like examples of, oh, this is good work, and then we have some examples of like, this is borderline professional. So this is sort of like a goal that you can have for yourself, right? You have all kinds. So August, we want to show you this stuff. So another thing that we do is we visit and we participate in most of the National Portfolio Day events across the country. So specifically in California, for those of you in California, we go to the one in LA and we host the one in San Diego. So we'll definitely be at those. For other states, me personally, I handle the southern southeastern states. So I'm in Florida, I'm in Georgia, and I'm in Louisiana, which is going to be fun this year. Micah, what states do you handle?
I work with the West Coast territory, so it's going to be Pacific Northwest, Arizona, Nevada, and I think like Idaho and maybe Montana, like the west side of the
Sweet.
states. I also work with kids down in like San Diego and like South Orange County. Everyone
Awesome.
has different sort of territories, so you'll be kind of paired up with a different counselor based on like where you're coming from, literally. Also, any international students will work with our international specialists, so
Hmm.
helps out our students there.
Yeah, we've got somebody to help you basically no matter where you're coming from. Um, yeah, so keep all that in mind. Okay. Yeah, so our generic email address is admissions@lcad.edu. Feel free to email that. If you are not quite ready to open an application and you still want to ask us some questions, um, you can be put in touch with an admissions counselor. The quickest way to do all of this is to obviously open an application. Opening applications is huge. It's a very big part of the process of getting accepted into college. So do that. You make yourself a priority for us. Um, yeah, and you can just get all the information from us that you want. We'll sit there. We'll help you build your portfolio. We'll help you build a portfolio that you can use probably for every art school that you're going to apply to. And we do highly recommend look at other art schools, find your best fit, find, um, where you think is going to be best for you. Yeah, Kayla.
See you raising your hand. So if
Yeah,
you
you're
want to
raising your
unmute, you
hand.
can. If you want to drop a question in the chat, I'll read it out loud. No worries.
So yeah, there's just a lot of ways to contact us. Don't be afraid to contact us. Um, we're super happy to talk to you, and you'll be put in touch with someone
Yeah.
who can help. Can you
Okay.
start your application as a junior? No, you can only start your application for um, basically the year that you're going to be going to college. So right now we just opened up our fall 2026 applications. So unless you're going to be going to college in fall of 26, you won't be able to, unfortunately, but you can just reach out to us directly anyway, right? You won't get the same like, oh, I applied, I drop into the inbox. You can just drop yourself into the inbox essentially. You can make yourself a priority if you want to. Absolutely. But you will have to wait until next year. So if you're a junior, are you looking at college for fall of 27? Cool. Okay. Yeah. So reach out to us. I mean, we've been talking to a ton of juniors, especially the last couple of years. This last year in particular, we've been talking to a bunch of juniors and sophomores. So it's never too early to get jump started on this stuff, just because there's like an output that you're going to be responsible for, right? So talk to us. We'll help you, even as juniors, 100%. No worries. Like you'll be just as much of a priority to us as like our active students. You just kind of have to go through a little bit of extra work of contacting us.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had a few other questions. Let's get
Yeah.
back up. This one is one that is more particular. So we kind of covered, we saw like a sneak peek of the animation one. What are some important things to include in the entertainment design portfolio?
Right.
I would say this also sort of encapsulates game a little bit too. There's a lot of overlap there. If you want to pull up examples, that'd be sick.
I'll pull up the guidelines just
Yeah.
straight up really quickly. And then if we want to see examples, I can show you guys some examples really quickly. Let me see right here. This is for entertainment design specifically. So as you would expect for entertainment design, top two sections, life drawing, figure drawing, bam, 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 bam. Keep these in mind. These are big. Now, after that, for entertainment, Micah, do you want to talk about these a little bit? The importance of them?
Yeah, so entertainment, it's kind of like entertainment and game, they're very similar in how their portfolio guidelines are built out. Um, However, you'll see that entertainment, we are not just focused in on game level assets or game styled things, if that makes any sense. Entertainment is going to hit a wide variety of surprise entertainment stuff. So that might be game, that right? That might be animation. It could be illustration stuff. It could be narrative design, comic books, children's illustration. It could be theaters, plays, live action films, right? But also that themed entertainment stuff, right? Hey, are you ever bored if you're waiting in line at Disneyland? Maybe a little bit, but not really. Yeah, it's because all this crazy stuff's happening, right? Um, I think it's very fascinating once you're like, oh man, I'm like waiting in line for this ride, but you're also like looking at like R2D2 and you're like listening to sounds and you're like watching all the stuff. Like it's not a boring experience, right? So that's a little bit of themed entertainment. Can we kind of scroll up to the top a little bit?
Hmm.
So, spoiler alert, the first two halves, like the first two sections of most of the portfolio guidelines are going to have something similar to observational or life drawing and figure drawing. So heads up, like I said, we are always going to hit back to the roots of draw good, cool. Once you draw good, we can get into the visual development, the world building, right? And that's the design goods. It's the draw good, design good. So let's scroll back down and show off the second half. So entertainment in particular, visual development, world building, characters, vehicles, props. That could be weapons, that could be creatures even, right? We want to see how you are developing a world. If you have a world already in your brain, awesome. Use that, right? Um, we don't necessarily have like we need 3 pages of this and 5 pages of that, or we need 2 stories to be showed off in this world. If you're designing character A and you have character A's awesome little weapon, awesome. And then if you're like, cool, moving on to character B from a completely different universe, I don't even care. Like, just like show off your design skills, show off the things that you're tinkering with. For entertainment in particular, you want to, especially if you're gonna do something that's more like live action or even game related, you want to think about how is this thing or this outfit or this character I'm designing going to does it make sense in the world that it lives in, right? If you have this super sick like elf character with like dual blades and like a panther familiar or whatever, and then he's also like wearing like a band t-shirt for like Nirvana, I'm like, wait a second, are we in like fantasy world but it's modern, or is he super lost right now? Like, where did he get that from? Is that a time traveler? Like, I have questions, right? A lot of students, when they show me their designs, I can pretty much ask them quite accurately, oh, I see that the world you're designing is in a sci-fi and an alien planet. And they're like, how did you know? And I'm like, because you put them in very specific clothes, and I can tell it's alien because of the way that like their clothes have a weird hole punch in it that like people clothes and modern day clothes and fantasy or even historical attire just doesn't have, right? These are all like little things that you pick up on as a designer, that you can implement in your designs. Um, Same goes with environment. Is it supposed to be a haunted mansion? Is it supposed to be a weird desert like location, right? Is it Dune? Are we or is it fantasy? Like we in the jungle? Wherever environment that you're creating is going to influence what your character wears, maybe the weapons they have, maybe the creatures that even live on that place, right? It's going to influence everything around it. So your world building is quite literally that. I recommend if you're like, oh, I have too many ideas, just explore them each individually. But if you want to have something that's cohesive, have like 2 little characters, give one a pet, maybe give one a prop. What are their outfits? Where are they from? Is one person from the icy part of the world? Awesome. What does that look like versus the person who's from the desert part of the world? I don't know. Um, Entertainment and game and animation to a degree, right? You might have a little bit of like research that you do on your own time, right? If you're really obsessed with this one little thing, cool, look into it. Um, don't be afraid to put your passions into your designs. And then the last one here is storytelling scene. Basically, this is kind of like it's very similar to like a narrative little illustration, but a storytelling scene is going to be different in that it's like if it was a snapshot of a movie, right? If you pause the movie at a moment and you're like, here's a scene right now, right? So that can be obviously you see 2 people or you see a creature versus our hero fighting, right? You see like a comet touching down. Maybe this is like a mystery. And then the last one you see like a decrepit like haunted house kind of thing. It's like these are little scenes that could be in a movie, could be in a game, could be in a live action film, whatever it is. So that is a storytelling scene. And then of course we have our themed entertainment designs, right? This is going to be specific if you're applying into the themed design um, track. Basically, like I said, theme design is you're designing for people in the real world to experience it, right? Do you have your little like swampy lagoon cafe that's like located up in like I don't, or I guess it'd be located down in Florida, like something like that, or Louisiana as you're traveling there. Do you have like a water park that's based off of if a blizzard hit a certain part of the country that doesn't have snow but it never melted? Cool. That's typhoon or that's Blizzard Beach and it's also in Orlando, right? It's all of these things like you can theme things as you want, and come up with fun little designs. I get people who do restaurant designs like maps. Sometimes they'll do like a food cart and then like someone's outfit, like, oh, if you go to Legoland and someone's like dressed in certain colors with certain cuts and certain outfits, that's because they work there at Legoland or they work in a certain area of the park. Um, Justin, you probably have more examples from like Disney specifically, but like if you guys go to Disney, you don't see someone who's dressed, even if they're like a non-character costume, you don't see someone who's dressed for like Fantasyland in Adventureland. They
Mhm.
just aren't there. Like you know what I mean? Like that's someone's design is, hey, here's the outfits for this land, and you never see that person cutting through the other lands because they've already designed the park around like secret little trails. I have to
Mhm.
assume. I like
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
never see
it
them in
is.
other
The
spots. So
backstage area is very interesting.
yeah, so that's someone's job. It's like even from like the weird little secret backstage areas or even like the Cantina restaurant at Disney. It's like, oh, it's themed after Star Wars. Cool. Someone has to design that, right? Um, that's what themed design kind of stuff is. Um, okay, were there any other portfolio guidelines that you guys wanted us to like specifically get into a little bit? Because we have them all up here.
Because we can and we will. Um, the common theme is you're going to see
Oh,
just a bunch of drawing.
mhm. Did have another question.
Sure.
Let's see. Okay, we have game art for portfolio. Okay, let's cover game art and then we're gonna get into another question we had up here.
Okay. So game art is going to be quite similar to entertainment design. The main difference is that game art is more about the assets, whereas entertainment design is going to be about the final experience that you're sort of
The
building out.
yeah, like the function essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. So here with these, again, this is just going to be a lot of redundant information, but figure drawing, observational drawing should be your mantra. Figure drawing, observational drawing. Continuously do these basically no matter what kind of creative you are. It's just going to help you. It's going to pay dividends. Now, for games specifically, what we're looking at here, a big part of it is world building and obviously the viz dev side of things. Um, and this is what really attracts a lot of students to game art is they want to work in concept for game, which you'll definitely learn in this major. So you're gonna have to show us like your ability to sort of work and operate in that space. And that's largely going to involve iteration. It's largely going to involve the design of characters, props, and environments that all fit within a certain world, within a certain theme, within a certain idea, right? Not necessarily all encompassing. Like you're not designing a whole world. You can have them separate for our portfolio, but we want to see that design process is what I'm getting at. That's a very important thing. So that's why you'll see like these silhouettes. I love working in silhouettes. This is one of the easiest ways to start playing around with characters. It's very non-committal. You can go in to start making shapes. Just use a round brush. Go in and start making little blobs, carve some stuff out. You can have some fun with it, and really see where you're getting some of your interesting shapes. And what that'll do is that'll teach you how to create an interesting looking character, and it will very quickly teach you how to create a thematically appropriate character, right? So, if your character has like bionic legs or they're riding on some sort of machine like this, right? That's really quickly going to give you the viewer an idea of where the setting might be. A setting like Star Wars, the technology might be a little bit more advanced, right? People have robot limbs, or there's robots in general. I think, yeah, these two are supposed to be droids, right? This droid, whenever I look at this portfolio guideline, it always reminds me of the maid robot from the Jetsons, which is probably where they got this idea. But you could play around with that, right? Like, how do you want your character to present? Do you want them to present as someone who looks, like nurturing and safe, or do you want your character to be a little bit more imposing? The example I love giving for these is, like if you want a character to look scary, to look intimidating, you're going to make them really spiky typically. They're going to be spiky all over. So think about like a dragon, right? There's spines everywhere. They've got huge teeth. They've got horns, all of that stuff. That's a very intimidating silhouette. Whereas you have a character like Kirby. It's a ball. It's the most friend shape that you can possibly have. And that's why Kirby is designed that way. Is because
Great
Kirby is meant
design.
to be friend. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've seen so many videos like Kirby is literally the perfect character design. And it's very funny, and it's they make a lot of good points. You can make a great character with just something very simple. If you've ever like here, this is something we can do too. This is always fun. Um, just type in character silhouettes. Look it. Guarantee you don't need to pull up who these characters actually are. Most of you in this chat are going to be able to identify most of these characters, right? Finn and Jake, freaking SpongeBob, Plankton, Hey Arnold, Bugs Bunny, Garnet, all these cool characters, right? Um, Based on just their silhouettes. Overwatch is a really more great example because like Sombra and Roadhog, you can definitely identify who these two are by their silhouettes. They're calling this one bad because it's like it's hard to identify. There's not too much going on with the silhouette. We kind of understand that maybe the character's wearing some armor from their gauntlets, but that's really it. You're not getting too much else out of this. When you look at Sombra's, it's like, no, this is very distinctly Sombra, and you know why, right? Like her whole design, her whole silhouette screams this character, and it's because it's
also
so
keep
identifiable.
Also,
Sorry, go
keep
ahead.
in mind, game does this a lot on purpose because if you are playing an FPS shooter like Overwatch, and you see a little shape and you're like, that's Sombra, I'm about to get attacked. Oh, usually they'll do it
Mhm.
with shape, but also color, right? So keep that in mind. There's a reason that game pushes for silhouettes so that you as the player can identify the thing on screen a lot quicker than being like, is that a dog? That's a bear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's another reason silhouette is a great avenue and a great thing to like look into and also push within your designs.
Yeah. So not to drag this on too much longer, because Micah really did go into it very well with entertainment design, and there's a lot of overlap with game. So again, characters, props, weapons, especially in game, because a lot of times like games are about your hero, your central character, overcoming some sort of conflict, typically with violence of some sort. That's why you're going to have like a lot of gun designs, a lot of swords are very popular, spears. Um, or if it's Minecraft, there's like swords and shovels and pickaxes and stuff.
Pickaxe.
Yeah. Um, you get the idea, things like that. And then obviously environment design. Now, environment design in game, once again, it's a lot more focused on the just the visual development of it, right? Visual storytelling of the thing. So once again, heavy on iteration, right? Um, Building a shack out of like billboards and stuff, like something out of Fallout, does a lot to tell you a lot about the world that this building might belong to. And that's the thing. There's no other context around this building, but just the fact that it's built with sheet metal and like parts of billboards and stuff, you already pick up on the idea of the world that this thing might belong to. That is one of the beauties of like design specifically for game. Even in your interiors, right? If you have an interior, think about the character who occupies it, right? Are they an adventurer? Are they a cartographer? That's why this room in particular, you have a dummy with a bunch of arrows in it that character practices. It looks like the tidiest thing in the room is probably like their swords and their sheaths on their table. Everything else is sort of like scattered. So there's just a lot going on in here that tells you a lot about the character that inhabits this place. And I love these panels over here because um, your work does not have to be super highly polished or finished. You can sort of have these very quick scribbles to get across scale, to get across a general design idea, right? Is this a hut? This looks more like a hut than like a house, right? This automatically takes you to a realm of like, okay, maybe this is prehistory. Maybe this is a world where the characters live in like these huts instead of like an apartment building or something like that. Is this Horizon Forbidden West, or is this Cyberpunk, right? You very quickly can tell the difference between those two settings based on how they design their environments. And then once again, keyframe illustrations, it's just an illustration that tells a story. One of the quick ways to create an illustration that tells a story is just to have a character interaction. So here in the center, there's not really a character interaction, but you have a character who's like sort of discovering like this laboratory, this big thing, right? The interaction is between this character and this big machine, this vat. Or, over here, it's a lot more direct. You have the little girl holding the mirror up to this wraith, this spirit. This is a very direct character interaction, right? You might not necessarily know the story, but you can see that there is some sort of narrative unfolding. Yeah, so that's what we look for in game. A lot of it is drawing, a lot of it is design work. Remember, we want to see all of your process behind all of this, so don't be afraid to bring it all to the table. We'll tell you what to use, we'll tell you what you can improve, we'll tell you, you know, how you're doing.
So
We will do a lot. Sorry, go ahead, Micah.
we had a question.
Yeah,
What if hypothetically someone submits their portfolio and they have an OC that looks very similar to um, another character from shows that they might like? Um, how do
it
we?
happens.
Yeah, I'm like, I feel like it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Um,
It definitely
how do you
does.
feel about it? Because I usually just am like, oh, they like watching this show.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of for me personally, it doesn't bug me. Um, at all, really. I mean, when I was younger, a lot of my characters, and this is going to be like super embarrassing. It's also going to age me quite a bit, so you guys don't judge me, okay? Um, when I was younger, like I've always like played video games and stuff like that. So one of my favorite games and still of all time was the original Final Fantasy VII. So for a while, when I was drawing when I was younger, all of my characters had spiky hair. All of them did. Even a lot of the female characters, which was kind of funny. It wouldn't be like Cloud's hair, but it would be like spiky hair. Um, just because like that game had such a large influence on me, right? That happens. It definitely does. And that some of that stuff will stick with you. And that's not a bad thing. So if your character like looks like another character, okay. But if you acknowledge that fact and you're like, you know what, I want to make my character more my own, try doing that, right? You can keep the main elements, right? If it happens to be like, oh, this character has like wild purple hair or something like that, right? Um, you can keep it. It doesn't bug me too much. What does start to bug us when it comes to like fan art, if it's like, um, I don't know, let's just do an example. Uh, name a thing, like
Um,
anything.
I'm trying to think. You said fan art. Like, what I particularly, I think there's a difference between, okay, yeah, my OC is a little bit influenced because I watched too much Avatar: Last Airbender as a kid,
That's a good example.
versus like I here's Sokka, but he's got a new hairstyle and also
Yeah,
he's wearing orange. It's like, okay, well, what are we doing? That's I guess the difference really
that was gonna
there.
be my example too. Is like, okay, so you're, if you want to specifically use Avatar, it's like, okay, here's my OC, but it's like just Aang, but instead of like the arrow pointing forward, it's like pointing backwards or something like that. It's like, all right, like that's a little like you're not going far enough. But in general, right, there's a lot of just characteristics that overlap. Typically, there's a range of hair colors, and this is getting more diverse, but typically there's a range of natural hair colors that you'll run into, natural hairstyles. Don't worry too much about that, but I also highly recommend thinking about how you can push your character and make it uniquely your own.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
definitely don't
if
worry
you're
about your OC looking like other stuff, dude. You're fine,
yeah, if you're influenced from the things you like, that makes sense. That's gonna happen. You're an
and that's a
artist,
good
right?
thing, honestly.
Yeah, it's a good thing to take influence from things that inspire you. Obviously, don't copy it one for one in that way, but if you're like, oh, hey, I really like the way that this show handles environments, or I love how they design characters. Learn about it, do your own studies, and then apply it to your own characters, right? That's how we grow and learn as artists. It's taking inspiration, it's taking reference rather than like, one for one ripping them off or whatever, that kind of thing. So just keeping that in mind, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
we learn from each other.
Yep. And you will like let yourself be influenced. That's not a bad thing. Don't make yourself an island. Just, try and develop your own skills and your own sort of like design methods. So
Does anyone
cool.
have any other questions? I think I got to most of them in the chat that I saw so far. Uh, Oh, do figure drawings need to be from life or can they be from photos? So here's the T. Some people don't have access to live models, right? Um, a lot of students are using online stuff, or sometimes people are just like going to a cafe or going to a library, or they're in class and they're drawing everyone from the back, whatever, on a bus. So I would say try to get a mix of both if you can. Not everyone has access to it, right? Some people are living off in like a weird town in the middle of nowhere, and they're like, "Hey, I got an internet connection and a dream." There's plenty of online resources, right? We as counselors have a handful of them for like figurative stuff. Line of Action is a great one. New Masters Academy has a YouTube playlist of like timed model poses. Um, there might be events local in your area. Of course, if you're like not 18, you might need your parents' permission, or I don't, each one's going to have different rules. LCAD hosts short pose and long pose. So if you are in the uh, where are we? SoCal, like South Orange County area, and you're like, hey, I want to pop over on a Saturday and do some drawing. Cool. Let us know. I think there's like a permission slip or whatever, and then you can kind of get in and do a drop in, right? What about anything to add to that?
No, yeah, basically just, you'll find a way. I highly recommend just going online and using one of the resources that Micah mentioned. And then honestly, like if you're in class, draw your classmates, draw your teacher, go to a cafe, look at people in real life and draw them. Just see what you can do. I guarantee you, like there's a lot of stuff that you can do to practice figure drawing. So yeah, no, all great points. One more thing, we do host figure drawing workshops at LCAD. If you want to participate in one, come by the admin office. Tell them that you watched like our online portfolio workshop and that we mentioned that we have free passes. We will give you a free pass to the figure drawing workshop, which like that's pretty big. It's $15, I think, for the general public, which isn't a ton, but as students, it's nice, and as artist students, having access to a free figure drawing session is great. It's not led, right? There's no professor, anything like that. You kind of just go in, see the model, and draw. Um, but yeah, we have free passes for you if you come in. Just say you watch one of our workshops, and we'll get you one.
Does anyone else have other questions? Feel free to drop it in the chat.
Yeah, feel free. We're probably gonna wrap up here. If there's no more questions, but yeah, we'll hang out for the next, I don't know, let's say 4 minutes, just in case anybody does have questions. But outside of that, thank you guys for hanging out. We're kind of done. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to reiterate all of this. All the admissions counselors are more than happy to reiterate all this stuff. This is what we do. We know a lot about it. We talk a lot about it. And we'll be happy to include you in that if you want. So yeah, we're just hanging out. You're free for the evening. Cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Okay, question before we yeah, formatting. We do have a few like pointers on formatting, but if you are like, hey, I'm fighting for my life, just reach out to your counselor. I'm so serious. We'll help you out.
Mm-hmm. We're really glad it was helpful, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and feel free, reach out. Like I said, the session's recorded. I think it will be posted sometime on our YouTube at some point. So if you do need to
Yeah.
reference back to it, it will be up in a number of days to weeks. I don't know the posting schedule. But yeah, something to keep in mind. Okay. Do you guys have any tips for anatomy and character design? I'm still struggling with a bit of my anatomy and I'm trying to learn how to design my characters better. The problem you're having with character design is always going to go back to your anatomy. You got to get the anatomy done straight, and then your character designs will flow a lot easier. Um, that's the unfortunate truth of it, right? If you're like, oh, the design's kind of whack, it's probably because the anatomy's a little busted. I would say before you get into your character stuff, warm up with some gestures, warm up with a little bit of anatomy study. Um, I sent a link to Line of Action. Of course, there is New Masters Academy has like YouTube playlists of stuff. But let me see. I think I found a PDF of Morpho, which was fantastic. Let's see. Yeah, actually, I'm just gonna drop it in the chat because who cares? So this is a PDF from one of the artists, Morpho. They do like simplified forms. So if you ever need to like reference actual like, hey, what does this look like? Look into that, right? I'm not expecting you to like learn the names of the bones and the muscle. You can do that while you're here. We do have scientific and artistic anatomy classes that are baked into every curriculum. Um, but if you're like, something's going on here. Just double check the anatomy and then you can start looking at how other artists tackle anatomy. It's gonna depend on how you stylize, right? Um, Character design in particular, that's going to shift depending on what you want to make it for, but it's also going to shift depending on if you're going more like if you have a more game style, right? Game styles tend to lean slightly more towards realistic or even like more like little like anime flavor, right? Overwatch, for example, or even some of the new stuff you're seeing with League of Legends, but like it's the fighter game thing. You're seeing like a little more of like that like Eastern influence, but if you're going more like old school, like Western animation kind of style, a lot of that stylization in there, that's going to look a little different, but you're going to start to learn that as you are learning the anatomy. Like
Hmm.
Justin was saying, yeah, like you once you like learn how to do the letters, you don't have to think about making the letters, you just start writing words and sentences and so on. But if you're still fighting for your life to like get the alphabet down, spend the time there, right? That's kind of like the basics there. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, so honestly, for anatomy, just you can hop on YouTube and sort of get like a good
We also have
artistic
resources. Email us, like
version
straight up.
of learning anatomy. Another little tip that I think I would add to that is study character archetypes. So a lot of the
Yes.
time your character designs, they won't look right, they won't read right because you're not thinking about the character in terms of the correct archetype. Right. So if you have like a character and you want this character to be just a brawler and you want them to get in there and, just tear things apart, but then you're drawing them as this like really tiny, dainty character, it's not really going to connect in the way that you might want it to. So, think about things like that, right? Is this character meant to be a brawler? Is this character meant to be more of a wizard or an intellectual based character or a sneaky character, right? Really think about all these things as well. Yeah. So, I mean, keep studying, honestly, like, watch artistic anatomy videos. I guarantee you some of it will stick with you and you'll start thinking about things like that when you're drawing. And then start studying, the storytelling. Think about archetypes. Yeah, those would be my two big things.
It's good things to look into for character design.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah, no worries. Well,
Yes, the session was recorded.
mhm.
And it'll be posted on our YouTube probably within a week, maybe two. We're working on building out our YouTube. We'll also have other sessions like this posted there. There might already be a couple up. So if you
Sweet.
look up LCAD Admissions on YouTube, you'll find it, and you'll find like info sessions like this being posted pretty regularly.
Let's see. Next session
You got it. Yeah.
is,
And
I
I'll
think it's
obviously
next
like feel
month.
free to reach out to us. Admissions@lcad.edu. We're happy to talk about this stuff offline as well. You got it. Thank you. It is now 6:41. I think we are going to wrap it up for the evening. So thank you for everybody for coming in, talking to us, and we look forward to talking to you in the future.
Yeah, thank you
Bye.
guys so
Bye bye
much.
bye
Have a
bye
good one.
bye.